the chairman of the world's largest insurance market of Lloyd's, John Nelson. Such a pleasure to have you on NDTV.
Very pleased to be here.
You know, we were talking about how Davos has been so far for you, and you were saying that you've been busy in the last 1 or 2 days just meeting finance ministers, and there are a lot of them here.
Not just, others as well, but yes, Davos is a great meeting place for politicians, for businessmen, and for Lloyd's particularly, bearing in mind that we are an international business operating in 200 countries and having licenses in those countries and trading arrangements with them. It's a very efficient place in which to meet our counterparties.
So what are these finance ministers telling you? Because at a time that the world does not have a single pressing issue internationally, it seems that domestic policies will truly come into their own.
Yes, I think there's no doubt that you can feel that there's a bit more confidence coming back. And I think you see it in the numbers. You look at the US, which is recovering slowly, the UK, which is recovering rather more quickly than we thought it might. And then in other parts of the world, particularly in the emerging growth countries, which have slowed down a lot, again, you're seeing slightly better signs coming through. But it's brittle. And I think that one has to be careful that some of this recovery could be blown off course if there are other issues in the world, be it political disturbance or whatever, which could have an impact. But I feel, yes, pretty confident. And I think the other thing that's happened at Davos this year, as distinct probably for the last 3 or 4 years, is that the dangling debit of the problems in the financial services industry, concerns about the banking industry, have largely been dissipated. And that, again, is encouraging confidence.
What are your thoughts about the contrast between the developed world and the emerging markets, which seems to have reduced considerably over the last few years? Is that a big problem for emerging markets going forward to be able to sustain that exhilarating pace of growth that they previously had?
Well, the numbers would show that. But we believe still that the emerging growth countries will show significantly higher growth rates over the next 10 or 15 years than the developed world. And I think that is simply a function of countries commercializing, industrializing, and so on. And you can see it, all around the world, be it the BRICS countries or now the MINT countries. That is what is happening. So they will grow over that period faster than the developed world. It's inevitable.
It seems that over the last 2 years, foreign investors have criticized India for committing economic suicide because they say that policy reforms have stalled. Insurance has been a major one of them. Are you disappointed?
I'm disappointed in the sense that I would like the reforms to have taken place. My own view is that common sense will prevail and those reforms will be made in India. And I think it's very important that they are for the Indian economy and for the Indian people. Because if you look at the success of economies, dare I say it, like the UK, or take another growth country, say South Korea, who I was talking to last night, both of those countries operate very, very open economies. They encourage direct investment. They encourage services to go into those countries. And there is no doubt that the economies have benefited hugely from that. And if you take the insurance sector, there is no question that getting insurance penetration rates up in these emerging growth countries is of great benefit to the economy. On the one hand, it improves sustainability of the economy. It transfers risk away from directly onto the local communities. And it also provides investment funds for investment, so that it's a win for everybody. And I think having a much greater international insurance presence in India will definitely benefit the Indian economy.
But will the players within Lloyd's go to India if these reforms are not implemented in totality? For instance, in India, there is a lot of conversation about showing action, not just intent. And one of the crucial compromises which has come up has been that, yes, we'll raise our FDI from 26% to 49%, but we won't give you any voting rights. Will the Lloyd's players go into India without voting rights?
Yes, and I think in an ideal world, one would like to say that India should operate in the same way as many developed countries of allowing up to 100% ownership. I don't think that's politically realistic at the moment, but certainly with voting rights. In the Lloyd's case, of course, we are a market, we are not a company. So there have to be special arrangements which are already drafted, which have actually been agreed with the government, supported by the government. We are ready to implement those, and we've had detailed discussions with the regulators in terms of how we operate in India, and those discussions are going satisfactorily. But we need the legislation passed through Parliament.
So you need the insurance amendment bill
we do.
Before you go in and make that
Of course.
entrance.
Otherwise we're not allowed in.
Absolutely, but for Lloyd's there's a special set of rules as well.
There is.
But you are clear that those rules are something that you would comply with?
Absolutely.
They work with you?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
No need to change those rules?
No.
But just pass them soon?
Pass them, yes.
Okay. And have you had a conversation with the Finance Minister, P. Chidambaram, this time around?
I have not, no. We may meet later, but we are in close touch. But I think, to be frank, you have an election coming up. I don't think that anything will be determined by the Indian government or the Parliament on these various matters until after the election. So I think we then have to see who the officers are in place.
Whoever emerges as the victor in these elections, do you feel that they'll have the guts, the conviction to carry out these reforms?
I very much hope so, for the reasons that I've said to you, that I think it is absolutely clear that it is in India's interests, it's in the economy's interest, and therefore it's in the people's interest that the economy is opened up a bit more. It will increase wealth creation opportunities, which will trickle down into the whole economy. It will also, in the insurance sector, and let's face it, India is the subject of catastrophe claims. It's got big businesses which need insuring, business interruption risk and so on. And if that risk is transferred efficiently and well and at the right price, then of course it's of great benefit to the Indian economy.
Are you equally confident whether the BJP comes into power or the Congress comes into power, both will have the conviction to carry out insurance reforms?
I'm a businessman. I'm not in the business of judging political likelihoods, but I very much hope that they will, yes.
Okay, shifting course, what is your sense about climate change, which has emerged as a huge topic in Davos, and as the world's largest insurance market, you are considerably affected by what happens across the world, whether it's the polar vortex in North America or the typhoon in Philippines and various other weather phenomena which have been taking place in recent times?
Well, the insurance sector, and certainly Lloyd's, pays a lot of attention to climate change, and it evaluates all the time the changes that are likely. We do a lot of scenario planning, we do a lot of modelling, and I think that nothing is certain in this life, but what you can see from what is happening now is that there is some climate change going on even in the short term. The weather patterns are changing. So we take that very seriously, we watch it very carefully, and therefore I think the importance of specialist insurers like the Lloyd's market is ever more relevant even than perhaps it was, because it's very important for, as I say, for all countries to really understand how they can transfer risk, how they can rebuild infrastructure and so on after major weather problems.
If you're sitting here next year, Mr. Nelson, what would you say about the world? Do you feel that things will be still looking strong, the US will be in a better place, Europe will be recovering, and India will have had the elections uncertainty off the table?
On everything bar the last point, I would say I would feel reasonably confident. In the Indian case, I think we've had many years of uncertainty. I wouldn't presume to judge what will happen in India, but I hope, as I've said, very much that the necessary legislation is passed.
It is the largest democracy, but a messy one. John Nelson, pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much.
A pleasure.